Sick. All
Mhm.
right. When did you start playing shooters?
Shooters. Oh man, yeah, I actually got into it. My dad's a big gamer, so I got back like way in like for the first iteration like CSO, that was like CS Source or something,
Oh yeah.
and I played a lot of Half-Life Deathmatch.
Mm.
So like I was really young at the time, but I played a lot of console for a while, and then I've been playing FPSs the entire time for about the past 5 to 6 years. Like now actually playing, but.
Got you. Got you. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And when did you start playing PUBG? Were you one of those early like TPP adopters, or were you like later on? Where were you at?
No, I actually I started on Siege on the console, and I actually played
Oh.
competitive Siege there. So I moved into PUBG a little late. I transferred over. We're gonna switch over to PC, and then we didn't have a full team, so I just started playing PUBG for fun and fell in love with it. It was about a year into PUBG that I actually
Mm.
started playing PUBG, and it was on a laptop, so that
Oh,
was fun.
really?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go,
it was.
dude. Let's go. How many frames were you getting? Do you remember?
Bro, I did IEM. I think it was Oakland or Katowice. I don't remember which one it was. It was. I think I maxed at like 50 to 60 frames, and that was a yikes, man.
Dude,
That one. At that point, I went and I put a PC on a firm and I built my own PC and I paid it off over time. Like, I can't do that anymore.
right, dude, it's impossible. I
Mhm,
think when I started playing back in the day, like your
mhm.
FPS affected your weapon's DPS. So like I had
Yeah.
a total toaster rocking 30
Hmm.
FPS. Great times. Great times. Um but so how did you kind of get into competitive? Did you know people? Did you know the scene? Like what was that like?
I actually after the IEM, the one I talked about, I had
Mhm,
built a PC and I started playing around and I was playing with a group of friends.
mhm,
Um, and I got onto this first team, and then my first iteration of Zenith, which was with Kendo and Patron back in NPO.
mhm.
Kendo had picked me up from a team. It was Monster Five at the time, and that was like the first
Oh.
real team that I kind of played on. And we went from there and tried to build a couple iterations of Zenith, and here we are. So.
Nice, nice. Okay, so was that your first showing
Mhm.
overall? Was the MPL like 2018?
First we played a couple. I think there was a couple of events before that. We did some cyber power events. Like there was like a duo event. We did some of the Player
Mm,
One esports stuff. But the first like actual showing of that roster and kind of getting to show what we could do was NPL preseason.
mm-hmm. Got you. Okay. And if you did you start out as an IGL for that team, or did you kind of grow into that?
No, I actually Lush was on that team with us. He plays for T8 right now. He
Mm-hmm.
was the IGL to start out. I tried to do my best to frag in any way I possibly could.
Got
So IGLing, I think we made the switch during NPL, like phase one. We made
you.
a switch, and I decided to become the IGL. Well, the team decided for me to become the IGL, and I've been trying to grow ever since from there. It's only
Wow.
been recent. It's only been a year and a half, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Wow. I didn't know that at all. I'm glad
Yeah.
we covered that. But I can see the progression from Zenith. Kind of leading up
Mhm.
until now. Certainly, like this current year, doing a lot better. But when it comes to like I guess when it comes to like as of this current year and that further progression, what do you think changed?
Are you talking about from like just all of the PCS events, or are you talking about just recently
Yeah,
for PCS
I,
three,
w-
or?
I would say the PCS events, most definitely the PCS,
Okay.
like charity and PCS. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a lot of. Uh, we struggled in NPL due to the lack of firepower, and that's just putting it nicely. And
Mm.
I don't. Nobody's individual fault, but like as for we didn't have that, and once we got Mystery and Leda, for me, that was the first time as an IGL that I felt I had the potential to fight any of the teams that I felt we needed to in most scenarios. Um,
Mm.
which was a big step for us, and it was also a big step for me because it allowed me to do a lot as an IGL and the team to completely unlock all of its potential, being Zenith. And with that, we moved forward. We were able to start taking fights. We were able to also partly in that, right, when you have that team, you pick on the lesser teams a lot, especially in group stages. So you saw us flash a lot in group stages. You saw us come out in the finals, and we would be consistently top four, top five.
Hmm.
but we didn't have what it took at that time to make that next step and take a podium finish or even a first place.
Got you. Got you. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, when it comes to those roster changes, what do you look for? What is there anything that's like key and critical that you look for in another player?
Uh, well, the more and more I've played, the more and more I've kind of evolved on that. Because when I first started out as an IG, I look for people to kind of help me learn, as
Hmm.
well as like help find a direction for the team. Right now that I've kind of come into my own and I understand the game a little bit better, and we also have people like Kickstart and who also are very very smart with the game. So like when we were looking for a Shinboy and a Punage, for example, I'm
Hmm.
looking for just raw talent. And I'm looking for
Mm.
open-mindedness, right? Someone that's going to come in, they're going to be willing to learn how we want to play and not go, this is how I want to play.
Hmm.
You need to have that chemistry and you need to have decent, well-respected people that are willing to mold as a team and not have the ego to go, okay, well, I don't want to play your way. I'm going to play my way.
Hmm.
It's kind of what you're looking for.
Got you. Got you. Okay. Because I've noticed that because like there was the great roster shuffle of like 2020 there for a moment.
Mhm.
And that was just insane. With you guys picking up two players, it seemed like everybody was kind of going everywhere. And you kind of got to wonder because you saw some of those players go to other teams and some just take off and it works right away. Others don't
Yeah.
quite get that footing. Um, but were you going to say something about that?
I think with that, it was kind of like we shocked a lot of people. Like no one expected
Mm-hmm.
us to drop Mystery and Leda,
Mm-hmm.
and they're great players in their own right. But I think we had a lot of people come up to us and a lot of people go, "Well, you're a top 5 team. Why are you making changes?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't play the game and you don't compete at a level to stay consistent and be a top 5 team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just for anyone who's was curious, right? Like we made that switch because we want to be first,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't play, you don't compete, you don't to be second.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
you make that effort and you put everything you do and you do what you need to do to break out and be the best team you can be. And that's no disrespect to those guys; they're amazing,
Mm-hmm.
amazing people.
Yeah.
And they deserve all the best that they can get on whatever team they fall into.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously latest with Comets now, and they're a top 16 team, and we're looking to see what they can do as well. So.
For sure, definitely. And let's get like a little bit deeper, because when we DM'd about Zenith, doing well in my excitement over all the roster changes and everything like that into the group stages, take us kind of like into the moment, if you will, when you go into the group stages with two new additions. Like, what do you think the most critical thing for you as an IGL is?
Um, Experience with that new roster.
Mm,
You can do scrims all day, every day. It doesn't matter what you do. North American scrims are probably the most troll, probably set of scrims that you can find out there. I mean, there are times that you have 30 alive at phase 3, phase 4, and you're like, oh, yeah, we won the game. That's great, right?
yeah.
But you won a game that had nobody alive. And when you go to a
Right.
PCS event, when you go to these, when there's the money on the line, now
Mm,
you look at phase 4, phase 5, you got 50, 40 to 50 people, or you still got 60 something, right?
mm,
So when you're starting out that group stage, like no one's going to sit there and be, I'm not trying to sound egotistical. I'm not trying to sound that because I don't think that highly of myself or my team. But when you look at the grand scheme of North America, we used it as practice
mm.
because our goal is the final, right?
Yeah.
Your goal is to win the finals and your goal is to be the best team you can going to that. So for us, PCS group stages was all about molding as a team and gaining the best chemistry we could, figuring out where our flaws were, how to handle every circle, how these other teams may handle circles and circle scenarios, and like nitpick what we can and can't do as that roster.
Mm. Definitely.
But
Definitely.
that's about it there.
Got you. Because I was going to say, because it sounds like, or personally, like if I was IGLing, I think I'd be pretty pressed going in with two players that I hadn't quite had time. Because I know with that shuffle, there wasn't a lot of time to even
Mhm.
scrim, like for what it's worth.
I think we had a week and a half. I
Yeah.
think like actual with that roster when we knew we had that roster, we had about a week and a half to get ready for group stages, and it wouldn't have been any different. I think a lot of teams like obviously you aim to win the group stage, you want to win
Hmm.
it, and you don't, you're still playing for a first place and prize and whatever it may be, but your main goal is to figure out how, especially for me as an IGO, was figure out how I can play these scenarios with this new talent. What can I do? Can I play edge? Can I play center? Where do I play edge? Where do I play center? And like how to take those steps with these guys and how do they react to everything I do? And
Mm.
that's mainly the main part of it for me is figuring out how the players adapt and how I can make them the most comfortable in every given scenario so that we can get the most success as a team.
Definitely. I want to come back to that in particular. But what do you personally think is the most challenging aspect of being an IGL? And I would say, if I could ask, both for you and also both for maybe IGLs as a whole.
Um, I know definitely for me, it took me a very long time to figure out how to let go of the bad games. You have
Mm,
to reset every time. I think a big part of PUBG is mental.
yeah.
Um, so I would say maybe as I'm going to say this one for the whole. I'll say the whole
Mm,
of IGLs. I'm not going to include that in just me, but I think as a whole, learning how to mentally reset after a bad game and not going okay, because as an IGL, you can call a rotate and you can die on that rotate in 16th and
mm,
get no points, and everyone's aggravated. No one's no, you don't point fingers, but you're aggravated. It's a
mm,
frustrating thing. And you're gonna, for me especially, I'll hold that on myself. I'm like, damn, I could have done something better here. I could have done something different, maybe done a different rotate. And I used to, dwell on that a little bit
mm,
and be like, and you don't want to carry that momentum into the next game. You got to
mm,
clear your head, for anyone that's a baseball fan, for the love of the game, you got to clear the mechanism, right?
mm,
And you just got to clear that space out and you got to let everything go. No distractions. The next game is the next game, and you reset and you have the best game you can. For me personally,
mm,
um, I was like, I just tried to be a fragger when I first started out. So being an IGL now it was rough because I always find myself being over aggressive and pushing too far and maybe getting myself killed too early. While I also should have
mm.
just been staying back and paying attention to the little details of this rotator, what this team might do, and stuff like that. That was really difficult for me to understand at first because I always wanted to push, and I still do it at times. Where I just want to be up on a ridge, I want to be shooting someone, and I want to be Superman. Like I want to go be aggressive,
Yeah.
and it's very important to stay alive. It's the most important thing in PUBG. And yeah, as an IGL, you can say, well, you're dead. You can do this, but losing the IGL early doesn't bode well because like you have a feel for the game while you're in the game. You can also have a feel for the game while you're playing it and watching.
Mm,
But there's also so many negatives. Like when I die, now I'm trying to direct everything, right? And
yeah.
that's not good either. So there's a lot of pros and
Mm.
cons to it, but the hardest thing is definitely not being super aggressive still to this day, like as an IGO.
Definitely, definitely. Okay. Well, that definitely. So I want to loop back to the previous question to an extent because we're kind of on that topic of IGLing and putting
Hmm.
those players into those good positions. But I want to touch on Kickstart because I've seen him on previous rosters, right?
Hmm.
And he not that he's been lackluster on those rosters, but he seems to have really found his groove with Zenith. And I think I've seen him do better than I've seen him do over the course of any other tournaments with just consistency and being like a really pivotal member on the team. Is there anything that you think goes into that in terms of like the team synergy or anything that you're doing in particular to enable him to do more overall?
Uh, I don't know. That's a good question because we've talked about it, and like I think one of the big reasons Kick and I made this team after he was with Wildcard was now Veritas, but we played in the 303 league back a while back, the first iteration of it, and we had won together with D Rich and Batty Low versus all these teams, and we felt it went really really well, and that we worked off each other really well, and I think maybe it has something to do with like Kick is by far one of the best players in North America.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to see him on other teams and not succeeding, I can't give you the ins and the whys, but I think we have a very relaxed team. As in terms of like we're not really at each other's throats. And I know maybe in the past maybe that was the case. I don't know. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to speak on other teams' beef or whatever that may have been,
Yeah.
but I feel like he has the ability to be himself, and no one tries to keep him in check. Like he's very relaxed now, and we're able to set up and play our game, right? And at the end of it, if something doesn't go right, we have a cordial discussion about how we want to figure it out and move forward, and I think that's relaxing, and I think that is huge when it comes to being the best you can be in every game, because you don't feel like you're going to be hard pressed to have a reason for why you made a mistake, because everybody makes mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a big thing for him. We play a lot of edge, like when we're playing, and he's just someone that when I put him up against anybody in the league, he's probably going to win that 1v1. And so when you put him on the edge and you don't have many other threats to worry about, him, Punage, Shinboy, whoever it may be,
Yeah.
like we feel like we have a really, really good chance, and that's showing because he's consistently at the top, like you said, at the top of every PCS stat and charts, and that's huge for us. It's huge for him, and it's huge for our team.
For sure. For sure. Because I was thinking about it the other
Mhm.
day. I was just scrolling around Twitter and I saw the votes for the MVP. And he says, I know I'm
Mhm.
not going to get it, but, here it is. And it's interesting because he's just as deserving,
Yeah.
as those guys, he's great. He's great. And it's
Oh,
great watching
100%.
him just only grow as a player, and continue to do more and more. Um, but yeah, in those previous DMs, we also kind of spoke about flexibility. I was so curious. I
Mhm.
was asking like, who's the coach? What's going on? Because it just seemed like that flexibility had to be coached. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I know you said that it was kind of it boiled down to you guys kind of sitting down as a group, kind of reflecting on everything. Take us through that, if you will. Like take us to the day in the life of a post-match Zenith.
Um, well, if we're not fucking super mad, sorry, excuse my language, but if we're not super pissed at each other at the game, usually it starts out pretty quick, and we'll go in and we'll pop open a CGS, which if you go to the CGS links, you can pull up a map of the game and you can watch how teams rotated, what they did, and we generally try to get in there and break down the game.
Mhm.
So we look at where we messed up. And so maybe it's a phase one or a phase two, a pre like an early game setup, and we didn't take the proper spot, or we didn't control the high ground, or it's a phase three, phase four. We missed an opportunity. A team rotated in front of us that we missed, that we could have backfilled their spot. For us, it's a lot of, like I said earlier, we have really, really good chemistry, and we have
Mhm.
a four-man group that sits there, and when things go wrong and people make mistakes, they take the time, and we don't go, okay, well, it was your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. We go, okay, well, how do we fix this, and what do we do to get better?
Mhm.
So that builds that flexibility for us, because when we're constantly sitting down and VOD reviewing, we're seeing what these other teams are doing, where we made our mistakes. We're seeing also new opportunities that present itself for future games, to come up.
Mm.
So, for example, I think we had a game in scrims a couple days ago where we were in Impala playing the rocks, and we decided to play the rocks, and we got snuck up on the rocks, but there was no reason for us to play those rocks, and we ended up getting to a fight that slowed down a rotate right away, because we usually would have been quick out of it. We would have taken a center spot. We would have won the game, most
Mhm.
likely. But because we decided to play something different and hold our edge a little bit too far, we played on the coast. I think we ended up fighting STK or Sonics. I think it was STK, and we lost our rotation time, and in turn it made it a much more difficult game. We only get into like seventh or eighth place with a couple kills, whereas opposed to when we look back, we're like, well, we could have just avoided this by not playing the rocks, and we could have been up in this spot, and we could have had a win, or a second place with a shit ton of kills.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think I recall the match that you're speaking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that interesting. Um, I mean, I foresee you guys contending as a top three team, most definitely in NA. And if there was one thing, if you could put it down to one single most important thing to help your team moving forward, what do you think that would be to getting into that top three spot?
Consistency.
Yeah.
I would say consistent. We're very good at having very, very big games, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
come out and we'll have a 14, 15 kill win, and that's great. Yeah, but then I think first, for example, week one of PCS, group day two or whatever, we had a 24-point game to start the day, and then we had 7 points over 4 games, and you can't
Mm-hmm.
have that. The SDKs don't have that. The Sonics don't have that. And in order to contend with them and stay up with them, you have to be consistent. Your bad games need to be 8 to 9 points, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that range. And your big games, when they get there, they need to be big. You need to capitalize on your moments. You can't just go out and get the second place and be like, oh well, we got second. You need to figure out what you did wrong and how you can get that chicken dinner, and how you can move forward with that. And I think that's
Definitely.
huge for us. Is we can't have 0 point games anymore for sure.
Definitely. And what are your thoughts on the current landscape for the comp scene with PUBG? And I'm kind of speaking about NA, but I kind of want to get your thoughts on the NA comp scene, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on the comp scene like as a whole as well.
Uh oh man, I'm always gonna be honest and always be blunt. I don't think NA is very strong.
Mm.
and I think you have a couple good teams, and I think that these teams, I think we feed off of the weaker teams. And I wasn't a firm believer on that till just a couple weeks ago when I was watching the EU PCS, and you see that they have 10 teams all at 150 something points. They're all fighting for first place,
Mhm.
and that's great, right? And that's what you want. That's competition. But then you go look at us, and you got SDK with 190 kills in 20 games, right? And they're
Mhm.
beating everybody by 100 points. And then you got Sonics close, Oath third, and then us fourth. And then there's a gap at times. And
Mhm.
there wasn't that much of a gap in this one, but you watch the same teams kill the same teams every game, right? And
Mhm.
then you go look at the other regions, and you got consistency in those regions where it's close, and they got a lot of talent. And I'm not saying those regions have better, their top teams are better than our top teams. That, one day we'll find out, hopefully, when COVID finishes. But
Right.
man, like NA's got our bottom teams are bad, and our middle tier teams cannot compete with the top of NA. And that's
Mhm.
just, and it's, you watch that in Challenger, and you watch some things that it's like, and I'm not trying to be rude to anybody, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but you watch some teams, and they don't even know when to smoke, or know when to rotate, or know how to rotate. And it's like, it's kind of for an amateur portion of what we're in. It's embarrassing to watch from a
Mhm.
North American perspective.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that because I noticed that when watching some of the other regions and their group stages, things of the sort, even their PCS too, where like the
Hmm.
point spread was nowhere near as crazy. Their last
Hmm.
place teams. There'd be some teams down at the bottom that were
Yeah.
struggling, but like the middle pack, it only took like a few good games for them to be in first, and that's wild. That's wild.
I was watching EU PCS, and I think there were like 2 games left, and Team Liquid, Phase, and all of them were like, they were all in the top four, top five, and they only were separated by 10 to 15 points. And,
Gosh.
and then you look at them, they all have 80 something kills, right? And that's the
Mm.
difference, is to show the strength of the region, is where I see is the kill points for each team. Like, because
Mm.
you can get lucky with circles. You could have a team blow the competition away and maybe have, a 50-point lead, but then they're
Mm.
close in kills to second and third place. But then you look at us, and you got SDK, who has 190 kills, right?
Mm.
But fifth place only has 190 some points, so they have more kill
Mm.
points than your fifth place team.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous, and that just shows me that NA has a lot of work to do in terms of catching up, and that's where it's our job. We're not content with watching SDK, Sonics, Oath, whoever it may be, consistently run the table by any
Mm.
means. Like, that's, and so, we'll come out here, and we'll show that in the grand finals.
Definitely. What if you were to make like
Mhm.
let's say somebody close to you is starting up a team and they're gonna grind their way through Challenger Series. What would you say if you were to give them, let's say, maybe 3 to 5 things to focus on in terms of trying to grow a team from the ground up so that they could compete at a higher level eventually?
Mhm.
What do you think those things would be if you had those tips to give?
It depends on the level of talent that they have on that team already, right? But the main would be chemistry.
Okay.
You need to, in order to be a good team, you have to be able to talk and understand each other and move forward, and be able to overcome issues. And because every team goes through rough patches, and
Mm.
if you can't talk, and that also leads into my second point, which would be communication. If you can't talk to each other, and you can't talk during the game and figure out what you're going to do, you're never going to succeed.
Mm.
You go back, and you can listen to, PCS, they do the comm segments where they can
Yeah.
listen to people talk, and you go back and you listen to those segments and stuff, and you can hear when they focus in on a good team, it is clean, it's concise, it's to a point. Everybody knows what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, how they're going to move forward, and I think that's huge to be a good team. And I would also say, one of them is sticking together. A lot of teams, especially, I don't know if it's just I don't have a lot of experience with other regions, but especially in North America, it seems like you have a bad PCS maybe, but then everyone wants to blow the team up. And like,
Mm.
there are teams that I've seen blow each other up, like in terms of like the roster, and it's like, well, you had potential, but because nobody is willing to come together and work on your issues, you threw your potential out the way, and you're just going to start over fresh. And yeah, that's great. Your new roster may work for a couple weeks, but you're still going to run into problems with that roster too.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you got to learn how to talk to each other.
Definitely. Definitely. So you'd say, so just being able to communicate, right, and
Hmm.
grow. Anything else that you think would be imperative?
Uh, well, obviously continuity in your roster. Studying the game. is huge. If you can take the time to study what your teams do and how they play and zones and zone tendencies for a challengers team is, and that's what separates the good challenger teams from the ones that were failing even if they had talent on them. Is like you look at some of the people like for example, you had Cozy Crew, right, with
Hmm.
Nitrogen and all of them, right? They're experienced players.
Hmm.
They can probably look at the map on that phase 2 to 3 pop and find on phase 3 where it's going to shift off of how it's going to play. They can set themselves up, and now they're in a good spot. But do all those challengers teams know that? And that's what separates the really good teams from the average teams and the bad teams is understanding the game. A lot of these people all have similar gun skill and similar talent, but if you don't understand how to position yourself and how to set up for every game, you're going to struggle and you're going to find yourself in positions where you don't have a play and you've now waited too long to do something because you didn't recognize your advantage on the phase 2, phase 3 pop or wherever that may be, you know?
Hmm. Okay. I like that though. I like that. This is very. It kind of goes along with what some of the other coaches were talking
Mm-hmm.
about. When it came to some of those challengers teams and what needed to happen to kind of push them forward and get them over that hump so they could compete at that higher level. But to kind of come back to that question, the original question, and what are your thoughts on the comm scene overall for PUBG? And also, if you could speak on it, if you have any thoughts on it, the trajectory.
I honestly, I'm very proud of PUBG and what they've done over COVID. It looked bad at first. You know, Berlin got canceled, and everyone was like, "Well, here we go. This is the end of PUBG, right?"
Yeah.
And PCS was huge, and it was a huge hit. And you've seen the numbers and the viewers steadily increase for every region over the course of 2020. You know, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when COVID's going to slow down, but I do think comp as a whole in PUBG has been very, very good, and I think it's the one thing that keeps the game alive to an extent. I think, and people enjoy watching it. It's
Hmm.
dynamic.
Yeah.
It is very dynamic, and you never know what's going to happen. You can go out. You have an esport where, and I'm going to refer to the EU region where you can turn on. You can watch your biggest orgs in the world to an extent play, and
Mm.
16 teams at a time. Whereas if I go turn on like a Valorant tournament or a Rainbow Six tournament, I'm watching 1 to 2 teams or even a league tournament,
Hmm.
right? You're
Yeah.
watching 16 teams. You got Liquid, FaZe, Navi, all these teams out there, man, and that's exciting, and that's a
Yeah.
really cool thing to watch. And I think they've done a really good job with the settings and making it as exciting as they could. And pray to God Sandhawk doesn't come back, but we'll leave it at that. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited for the future. I don't know anything about what's going to come post 2020.
Hmm.
Nobody does at this point. But all you can do is sit there and pray for the best. Hopefully, they have some plan in place or something if COVID doesn't slow down to maybe get some events out there that would spark an interest and light a flame. But right now, PCS is doing fine. And I'm really excited and happy that they decided to go that route.
Yeah, I am too. I am too. I think this has been the most entertaining year as like a
Mhm.
fan of competitive PUBG versus any other year. And I think it's just because there's so much going on. It always feels like there's something going on between the group stages, between the Challengers Cup, between the finals. It always feels like there's something right around the corner to look forward to. If there's not something
Mhm.
already happening, there's something to look forward to, and it's quick, it's rapid, and it's fluid. And if it, when you catch it, you're catching it for all these regions pretty much
Right.
around the same time. It's like, you get, I don't know many other sports where you can watch it throughout the vast majority of the week, and just get to enjoy it. But
Mhm.
luckily we're pretty blessed in that regard.
I wish there was a couple more tournaments. Like, we have PCS3 right now, but I wish there was a couple third-party ran or like tournaments that we could have during the course of the week, so we didn't just
Mm,
scrim.
yeah.
It used to be that way. You had the PUBG Onlines and Awesome Opens and stuff like that. That once PUBG went away from that and they kind of turned into NPL, and it was just a one league. You're going to be out there for 3 months. You're going to play 2 times a week. It's never really come back, and that's also partly in fault to PUBG, but they're making an effort, and I think I'm allowed to say this in terms of like, they've been casting scrims the last couple of days. If anybody's been watching scrims, but we've been doing North American and South American scrims to just test ping and see how it would be between like the America region, and see if maybe, hopefully sometime in the next few months we can have a tournament that would be between the North American and South American teams, which would be really exciting as well. You get a couple, fresh faces in there.
That would be huge. That would be
Hmm.
huge. I would love to see that. Because I don't think I've gotten the chance to watch a lot of South American scrims, so I'll have to. And
Hmm.
is that just on the main PUBG Twitch?
Um, that is just casted by random people. You know, like in North America, you have Porosaurus, you
Hmm.
have the Los HDs that they go out and they'll cast their own set of scrims, because they have access to the server. They're not scrimming that day; they do it. I think today was just scrimmed by one of the bigger South American PUBG partners, and he casted the scrims. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look. I apologize, but um, yeah, he casted them today, and so we had a little glimpse of, and it's not a representation at all because you got 16 teams that aren't playing for anything. So we had 30 alive again by phase 3, but like it still was fun to see some fresh faces, get some new blood out there in the water, and you always got that friendly banter. Who's better?
Hmm.
So we're better, but it's okay.
I feel
That's
you.
all right.
I feel you. We'll have to grab his name and information, whoever was casting it, and we'll just add it into the links, into the description on
100%.
YouTube, so we can give him the shine, because I definitely would like to check that out. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had for you. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about? I know you've watched the Phase 10s. I know you've had some things to say. Anything you want to chat about?
Nothing really. I think we covered everything. Obviously it's a blast to be on here and enjoy watching and even jumping in on the chat when you do this. It's you got a good community you're growing here, and I definitely appreciate the opportunity to hop on here and talk a little bit about NA PUBG and Zenith as a whole. It's nice to get out there and show the boys some love because they deserve it. They've been putting in a lot of work, and
For sure.
all our fans especially, we're one of the few teams that are lucky enough to have a decent following when we start playing.
Mhm.
So we appreciate all of you guys as well, and whatnot. So that's about it from me.
Definitely, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of it. We'll definitely have to get together again sometime soon. We'll plan something out. I had some ideas, so I'll just shoot you some DMs. But definitely, man.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much for your time. I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, my man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, friends. I'll be right back. We're gonna continue on with some games in just a moment here, but hang tight.